Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Restore Yourself podcast, a podcast that is all about doing just that, coming back home to yourself, having a better relationship with yourself on the inside. And by that, I mean with your feelings, your thoughts, your desires, which very much can impact the behaviors and the actions and how you and I, how we all respond to the world. That's been my firsthand experience. I've seen that in a lot of other people's experiences, and I'm just so happy to to share what I've seen, to share what is working for me, and also what I've seen be helpful to others, because I show up in the world as a transformational guide, a metaphysical teacher, spiritual guide, all of the above, just to support people in creating better in their lives and honing their ability to respond to everyday life. Because it's great to learn about these things. It's great to learn about metaphysical concepts, energetic teachings, energetic practices. It's really amazing to learn about all of these things and know about them to understand how they kind of work, so to say. But to me, I find that the real power is in embodying, the metaphysical teachings, the energetic concepts and practices, so that the way that we show up and respond to the world, that's personally how it's worked for me. The way that I can show up and respond in the world changes, and I get new outcomes. I'm exposed to new potentials and possibilities that feel better because I know how to show up and respond differently from a different energetic state of being in the world. So that's a little bit about me. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. My name is Timothy Waterman. That's my full name. I often go by the nickname of Bo. So if you ever hear one of my guests call me Bo in one of these conversations that I have on the podcast, now you'll know why. Having said that, I'm super excited to have yet another guest on the podcast today. His name is Dmitri Sennikov. He is a very good friend, and I also very much respect the work that he does in the world. And I have a bio for Dmitri that I'm going to read for you in just a moment here. But to go back to how I know him, I just met him in this world of online transformational work. I've known him for about 4 years and just have cultivated a really amazing friendship with him. One where we talk about all of it, all of it, the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs, what we're learning, how we're growing, how we're evolving, all of it, how we're expanding, how we're embodying this high vibrational metaphysical wisdom in our lives, all of it. And so I'm super happy just to bring his voice, a bit of his voice onto my platform, onto my podcast, and share it with you. Because again, this is someone that I literally talk about all of the life stuff with, the ins and outs, as I said before. So happy to bring a bit of his voice to this platform. And I have a feeling that you'll probably enjoy what he has to offer, because if you've been around this podcast for a while, and you enjoy what's here, I feel that you'll enjoy what Dmitri has to offer, because I enjoy what Dmitri has to offer. It's just a feeling, just a hunch. So, as I mentioned before, here is the bio that I have for Dmitri. Dmitri is a software developer and serial entrepreneur turned spiritual coach and guide who has been training in the art of human behavior transformation and spiritual psychology for more than a decade. At first, he started on his journey because he wanted to escape his own high functioning depression, where on the outside his life looked perfect, but on the inside he was completely lost, confused, depressed, and alone, even while being surrounded by many loving people. Over time, understanding the art and science of happiness, emotional intelligence, human design, and our deeper purpose here on the planet, he's now helping brilliant minds let go of the conditioned responsibility to make life work. Release the weight of trying to control the uncontrollable and relax into the natural flow by dissolving deep-rooted fears and discovering true freedom, creativity, clarity, and prosperity that can only be found in the reality of the present moment. Wow, that is quite the bio. Like I said, he's a pretty fantastic guy. If you'd like to know more about me or my guest Dmitri, just know that you can find all of our relevant links in the show notes. So in the show notes, you will find a description for the episode. You'll find Dmitris bio and all of his relevant links in case you might like to learn more or connect with him beyond this conversation. Beneath Dimitri's information, you'll find my information. So all of my links, more about me, what I offer. And if you would like to be a supporter of this podcast, because this is a listener supported podcast, all the way at the end of the show notes, you'll find a place where you can make a financial contribution to the episode if you're enjoying the content and you'd like to support me in the production of more of these episodes. One small announcement I have on my side of things before I roll into this heart-to-heart metaphysical conversation is that starting now, today, the premiere of this episode, and through January 31st of 2024, I'm doing an experiment. And the experiment is sliding scale pricing on my sessions. And so it covers both styles of my sessions. I have one that's called personal breakthrough work, where I listen to people deeply. I listen to their concerns, their big questions in life. And the goal of those sessions is to help people hear themselves more deeply, because I have a skill, a refined talent, if you will, to help people to pick up where people are not listening to themselves, because this is what I have found. My heart, my soul always has the answers. And when I've worked with other people, I find that their heart, their soul has the answers that feel good to them, that just feel right to them. But I also often find that so many of us have been taught and conditioned to be all up in our head, which is where a lot of the voices of doubt live. And so therefore, many of us learned how to distrust the voice, the intelligence of our heart and soul. And I can speak for myself firsthand that when I started to lean into the wisdom, the truth, the guidance of my heart and soul, my life began to change in incredible ways. In fact, I completely restarted my life at the age of 30 based on listening to my heart. And I just closed out that decade, my 30s. And I just have to say that the things, the experiences, the people, the relationships that I allowed myself to open up to and experience, the adventures that I had, all came by way of listening to my heart and my soul. I completely restarted life. I moved across the country. I began anew in one of the biggest cities in the world, Los Angeles, because I grew up in a very small town on the East Coast. And a whole decade of adventure opened up from there. And so I have a lot of personal firsthand experience with listening to the voice of my heart and my soul. Do I still kind of, do I still kind of not honor that voice at times? Yeah, sometimes I know it's there, I know what it's saying, but there's the fears that come up, and the fears, the insecurities, the apprehensions that come up. And along the way, I've just learned so many tools in terms of how I can work through those. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but I do know how to work through those so that eventually I can get to the place where I can really honor what my heart and my soul is telling me. So that's a lot of what comes up in these personal breakthrough sessions that I facilitate with people, helping them hear more clearly the voice of their own heart and soul, because to me, that is what wants to guide all of us to a happier, more fulfilling, enjoyable life inside and out. The second style of session that I offer, I refer to as channeled guidance sessions. And with these sessions, though they are similar in a way, I do speak about them a little bit differently. So in these sessions, I go into what I feel to be is a state of heart coherence, and I speak from that place of soul intelligence. And the purpose of this to me is to help people see beyond the current limitations that they are placing upon themselves and their lives, this is something that we all, again, learned how to do. If you ask me, that's my personal opinion and perspective, that so many of us learned how to place all of these limiting conditions on ourselves, which really hold us back in life, what we allow ourselves to experience. And therefore, that's where a lot of discontent and that feeling of not being fulfilled can come from. It's because it often to me, it's because we're holding ourselves back because of all of these limitations that we learned how to place on ourselves. So a big part of those sessions is helping people see where the limitations are showing up in their lives, whether it's in terms of their thinking, their beliefs, their attitudes, all of the above, and even goes beyond that. Another big aspect of these sessions is helping people remember who they are and the creative power that they hold in their lives, and how they can choose new perspectives, new attitudes, and hold new visions for themselves and their lives, what they want to experience, what they want to create. So these to me are, again, slightly different and equally as powerful. And so if you have interest in either of those sessions, again, in the show notes below, you'll find a link to where you can go to my website. You can also find a link for testimonials that people that have worked with me before in both styles have sessions have wrote for me. So you will find all of that in the show notes. And again, the big announcement for now is that I am doing a bit of an experiment, again, starting now, where I'm going to have sliding scale pricing for the sessions, because my aim, my intent is just to be able to work with as many people that feel aligned with me and my energy. I like to make sure it feels aligned both ways. So there is a bit of a discussion or application process that is involved if you do want to work with me in either or both style of sessions. That comes after you go to the website and take a look. You'll find the first step there. But again, my intent is to work with as many people who feel aligned, again, when it feels aligned both ways, just to feel more powerful in their lives and to get clearer on the visions that they hold for themselves, that they desire to hold for themselves, the direction they want to move in, what they want to create, what they want to experience. And then, look at any limiting beliefs or behaviors or thoughts or patterns that may be getting in the way of that, so that with that new awareness, new choices arise. The awareness of new choices in life arise. That's the aim, that's the goal. Because again, to me, when we have the awareness of new choices that we can make that take us beyond limitation, the ways that we've been limiting ourselves, that to me is where new timelines, new potentials, new possibilities open up, when we have the awareness to choose beyond what we have been choosing thus far, and therefore expand into life, show up and respond to life in a whole new way. So if you can't tell, I'm super excited about these sessions. I'm super excited about this work. So if you have an interest, again, head down to the show notes. You can find all of my links. You can learn all about me. And if you would like to explore getting started in either style or both styles of work with me, please feel free to send me an email, which you will also find in the show notes below. From there, we can have a consultation, if it feels like a match both ways, which is something I kind of assess once I begin speaking to someone. I might have some questions just to see if we're a good match. And if it does feel like a good match, then, we can proceed from there, get your questions answered, cover all the things before actually getting started with one or both style of sessions. So that was the one and only announcement I have for today. Super excited to share that. And now, without further ado, I will go ahead and roll into this conversation with Dmitri Sennikov. Welcome to the podcast, Dmitri. It's really nice to have you here today. I mean, we've talked a lot over the past 4 years, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you here today. So welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Definitely. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm excited for this.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, as I just said, I've been in contact with Dmitri for about 4 years now, and just met through one of these professional endeavor things in the growth community, and formed a connection 4 years ago, and just continue that connection, and which is pretty cool that things can happen like that. And I've had a lot of just the most deep, insightful, profound conversations with Dmitri over the past 4 years. I've got to experience some of his services, which are like top notch. It's like the real deal. Like he'll help you find stuff about yourself that it's time for you to understand or witness or come to terms with, that's for sure. So not only have I had like a great friendship, but also got to experience him on a professional level with his skill sets, and again, top notch. So and I invited him to have this conversation just because it's has to do with subject matter that we're both familiar with. And so it has to do with this. To me, it is very spiritual in essence, because it really has to do with listening to the voice of the soul, which to me is very different in my experience than the voices that I heard from culture and society. And when I'm referencing here, the voices that told me that I had to essentially prove my worth, that I wasn't enough just by existing. So I had to like prove that it was okay for me to exist and to be here, and prove that through accomplishment and measurements, and achieving and having a list of like, see, it's okay that I exist, like these are my these are my accomplishment type thing. And coming from that energy, really believing that was real, really believing I had to buy into that, to hearing the voice of my heart and soul, which has reminded me that my value comes from the fact that I do exist. Like that's it right there. And then I'm not here to achieve or to prove anything. I'm here to find what lights me up in this life and what brings me joy. And my contributions can come from that energy. Like we're all contributing, whether we realize it or not. And I've just seen that the voice of my heart and soul has continually reminded me that whatever contributions I make can come from the energy of joy. It's a joy to make that contribution for me, and therefore that joy radiates out and it benefits others, because whatever we put into something is what other people feel when they receive it. And so big part of my journey has been letting go of like the proving, the needing to achieve to validate myself, and relaxing into what I like to call the flow, which is actually happens to be a lot of what Dmitri focuses his online messaging about right now. So relaxing to the flow, and the East, they would call that the Tao. So that's the gist of the conversation. And again, Dmitri, thank you for being willing to have it with me.
For sure, for sure. It's awesome that we finally get to record something, because, as you mentioned, I love all of our conversations, and we just go deep. And it's awesome to share this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. Well, actually, I wanted to give you an opportunity before I jump ahead too far. Yeah, just feel free to just share anything about yourself that you feel like you want to share in this moment, and just a little bit about how you serve others. I just want any of the listeners or viewers just to have some context. So yeah, anything you'd like to share, please feel free.
Sure. Really a 2-minute spiel. My story is I am a trained and pretty talented software developer. I won competitions when I was back in school and kind of university and everything else. And I flowed into the career that was highly paid. And yet, as I was reaching another milestone after milestone of buying a car, buying an apartment, buying investment property, it didn't feel good. And I got to experience at some level, I wasn't swimming in money, but what Jim Carrey mentioned, I wish everybody got to experience that. Millions is not what's going to make you happy. And throughout that process, I was really depressed. And what was even more unfortunate about it is that on the outside, I'm successful. And I can't even share with anybody that I feel crappy on the inside, because everybody would want to have my external life and all of the potential talents and everything else. And so that was quite a miserable existence in a way. And over the last, I think, 2 decades, really, I've been diving deep into all kinds of things. Thankfully, my income allowed to join all these programs, from biohacking to entrepreneurship to some of the psychological aspect. Good thing I didn't go into the pharmaceutical help to figure out my balances, but I did go and experience an aspect where they say depression is caused by lack of serotonin in the brain. And I went into some of the supplements to help with the serotonin aspects. And now it's coming out. I love how Gabor Mate is saying, I love his metaphor that, saying that your lack of happiness is lack of serotonin in your brain is like lack of your social ability is like lack of alcohol in your brain. So it's kind of I got to see that happiness and well-being um, is much deeper than the outside. It doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't come from the achievements. And so now what I really got to helping people with is me, who I was 5, 10 years ago, feeling not well on the inside and trying to fulfill that through achievements and success. And so what I call that now is really high achiever syndrome. In a way, it's children who learned that we get love and validation when we perform. And it comes with all of the beautiful things that, we wake up and we make things and we create stuff. But the internal experience of it is not the best. And some of the challenges, issues with that is most of the entrepreneurs that I met and have really been myself was the addiction to stress. As in, if we don't have the stress, we have learned that, okay, maybe I'll be lazy. And that if I'm laying on the couch, then that's not good. And who am I? Then I'm a failure, et cetera, et cetera. And, all kinds of studies show that just when there's stress in the body, our capacity to come up with ideas, decisions just goes way, way down. And that's kind of what I'm here for, really, to help entrepreneurs, not only with their internal well-being, but in a way to unleash all of their talents that they're right now being squashed in a way by their attachment and anxiety and worry about everything that they have on their to-do list.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful intention. And of course, I can definitely relate. I think a lot of my life I was addicted to stress. I thought it was quote unquote normal. And then again, like my heart and soul started to invite me into a different kind of existence where it wasn't based on stress being the norm. And it was actually about allowing myself to be relaxed in my body more and more. It's been a process. It's not like it's happened overnight or in a few weeks. It's been like, as you said, it's been years of relaxing, and it's still going on. My heart and soul is still showing me areas where I can like relax, because it's like it's this whole like idea. To me, it's like a mind-based thing, and I feel like it has a lot to do with societal ways of being, but it's this whole idea that like, we're supposed to be in control, like we're supposed to have control over what happens in our lives. I mean, of course we can really be conscious about how we respond to life, but I'm talking about like controlling the sequence of events and controlling what does happen and what doesn't happen. It's like I've seen a lot of the invitation for me coming in to relax more in my body in this life has been like, it's had a lot to do with letting go of this idea that like I'm supposed to be in control of it all, if that makes sense. So can definitely relate. And then one thing I want to make sure that I understood it correctly. You had said something early on about Gabor Mate. Am I understanding correctly that what you were saying is that making serotonin or a lack of it the reason that you're not happy is kind of like the same thing as saying like, well, I'm not happy because I don't have alcohol? Is that what it was?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't fully express it how he says it,
Yeah.
but that's pretty much what he's
Okay.
saying, is that we're looking at it backwards.
Okay.
As in, lack of serotonin is already a symptom and a result of an underlying issue.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like saying, yeah, it's kind of like making excuses is what it sounds like to me. It's like, oh, I can't be happy because what I hear you saying is like, no, that's just a result of you already not being happy.
Exactly.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
lack of serotonin is a result of you already not, allowing yourself to be happy for whatever reason. So thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, what does it look like for you? I've just shared a little bit about my journey. What's been what's maybe been a bit of your process in terms of, well, I mean, flow is what you talk about a lot these days. So maybe just share a little bit about what's been your process for you to relax into flow coming from that, like, achieving perspective.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. So I think majority of my life into 20s and maybe even 30s was spent in performance. And even then, working with coaches and high performance coaches, um, it got to the point I wasn't considering it being burned out at the moment, but my coaches were saying, "Hey, dude, you gotta take a break sometime. Like you gotta sleep." And I'm like, "But I can't. I need to be productive." And what we were talking about then was switching. Then, well, taking a break is productive. So it was still coming from the understanding that the meaning of my life is to be productive, and uh, I exist only when I'm producing something, when I'm in action, and uh, that sort of okay. It worked for a little bit, but it was really just on the surface. Um, I was able to take care of my physical body, but again, I was setting up the routines in the morning. I've got half an hour. I got to optimize, maximize everything to get a workout only because it's going to be make me even more productive. I got to eat healthy only because it's going to make me even more productive. And that was just a race to nowhere. And I felt that mostly on the inside. Like outside, again, my performance was amazing on the outside. My achievements, my everything else, and most issue was on the inside. So I went on this spiritual journey in a way, and it got to the point that none of it matters. And I probably spent maybe 5 years or so in this void in a way where I lost meaning. Whereas before I had the vision, I had direction, I need to impact people, I need to, change the world. And then I got to the point of it wasn't a spiritual awakening, it was a spiritual journey in a way where I would meditate for 6, 8 hours in a day. And it's like, okay, there's no point anyway. And I spent maybe a little too much in this space of there's no point in anything. So why bother? And as a result, kind of I saw myself that at that point I'm sitting on the couch, sort of meditating, kind of somewhat enjoying, but not really enjoying the moment. It was more of just numbing. And I'm like, okay, I got to get up. But at that point, I already was wounded through my high performance, and I hated myself, and I didn't want myself to go back into the um, performance just for the sake of performance. And I needed to heal that at that moment, where um, I started looking, okay, what would healthy action look like? And what I got to right now, this understanding that it doesn't matter what the action is. It is, and we just covered it just before the call. It's the intention behind the action, the message that you got. Because working out, it could be considered as an amazing thing. It takes care of the body, it gives you energy, and all the goodness that comes with it. But at the same time, working out could be used as an addiction. You see kind of what they're called yoga moms who, are addicted to the gym because they can't do anything else with whatever's happening inside, handle the emotions, whatever pains are inside. And similarly, I see a lot of with young people where they define their likability with the way their physical body looks like. And so then it is no longer the self-love aspect, but it is, I need this to be liked, and I need this in a way to survive. So, and you can take that to anything. Food could be an addiction. Even healthy food could be an addiction, right? It's so to me, that's where my journey was to kind of see, okay, why am I doing this? What's the intention behind this? Am I using this action to cover up for some pain that I feel inside or something that I need to look at? Um, and that's kind of, we could be recording this podcast in order to um, require or needing to be seen, to be heard, for people to pay attention to us in order to sort of soothe ourselves that we exist in a way and that we matter. Or we could be recording this podcast strictly from the intention of playing, connecting, sharing. Same action, different results. So kind of a bit of a tangent on my journey. So really, I've been sitting with this and on both ends of the spectrum, where one was too much on the high performance, and my performance was coming from, I am not enough, I'm not worthy, so I need to perform. And then on this other side, where now performance was my wound, and I'm sitting, I'm not doing anything, and I'm chilling, and that didn't feel good either. And so then right now, I'm really on the journey and exploring myself with myself and others. How does it look like to combine these two? And at which point is it okay and actually good to relax? At which point is it actually okay and you need to, get into action? One of the interesting moments I saw, seek discomfort. Same thing, this message of discomfort. Before, from the high performance aspect, I got addicted to discomfort. And I knew all about it, the cold bath, the wake up in the mornings, just, put your body under stress, go do stuff. And that was happening from the wounded place. And I got good at it. Then I got to a space of, okay, the spiritual aspect where they say, all is love and light, and don't do anything that you don't enjoy. And I stayed there. And also I didn't see much progress happening. Okay, maybe I was smiling, but inside was something was still scratching at me. And again, what I came down to, it is the intention of the discomfort underneath. Like it's not that, on the high performance side, it's always about discomfort. It's also not from the love and light aspect that you should never go into the stuff that makes you, cringe inside. But it's the intention behind the action. For example, again, if we're talking just workout is quite a very real example, that if you want to have energy and a good body, you need to go through the discomfort of working out. And at some point, you get to learn that pain. So in a way, what was happening for me, being in the discomfort of not doing anything, was the discomfort I needed to go into to let go of the high performance.
Like the biggest thing you were avoiding was like finding a sense of ease in the, okay, I'm just not doing anything right now.
And what the heck does that mean about you when you're not doing anything?
Yeah, because that brings up all the stuff, right? Like, to me, especially what I refer to as the societal stuff, like it's like I should be contributing, I should be making stuff happen, I should have a list of accolades to show off. And so it's like, but you're leaning into just being okay, being still is kind of what I'm hearing.
Exactly right. And it is not love and light space to be there. as something that you might be going through as well now. It brings up all this stuff, and if we don't know, we've never been taught to deal with emotional things, right? And then we have this external pressure. You should be, right? It's like, you should be having your bills paid, you should have money, you should have clients, you should, and then what do we trust? Right? Which guidance system do we rely on then? And that was my big journey of really reading books, but then experientially experiencing
Yeah.
both ends, where I would lean into too much to both spectrums just to see what is right for me.
Yeah.
And at different points of life, it will be different. I needed to go through the discomfort of inaction for quite a bit of time, maybe 2 years. And now I am going through the discomfort of again getting into action, but now from a completely different energy.
Yeah, because to me, I mean, this comes from my own experience, is that I agree, like when the heart and soul is saying actually like the growth, because like what I mean by growth is just like, again, returning to a harmonious flow with life. And I feel like there's a lot of evidence to say that many aspects of humanity have found their way out of flow. And there's a lot of symptoms of that. Uh, and getting better, of course, like there's, like a lot of people are familiar with meditation and yoga and Tai Chi, and these are all ways of, taking care of the body, they're like inches in the direction of coming back to flow. So it's good. There is change, but there's been a lot of symptoms for a long time of, what I would say being out of flow, I think, particularly in Western cultures, because, Western cultures to me and my perspective did get really focused on achievement. Whereas you could say maybe I would imagine, just based on what I've seen and heard, not from like, face-to-face real life experience, but just from what I've seen and heard, it seems like and indigenous cultures, they really value, being in harmony with nature and life and the flow, just based on what I've seen and heard, and like interviews and documentaries and things like that. And so, yeah, I've also, had the experience of, my heart and soul being like, well, the expansion for you is in the, just like slowing down, having a lot of stillness, like maybe not knowing what the direction is, for the first time ever, and just like, which is often referred to as being in the void. But like, that's where, again, that's the invitation, the opportunity to allow even more relaxation in your body when it's just moment to moment. And the big thing that I've learned personally is that even in a place of spaciousness and being still and, the void, so to say, it's like, there still is opportunity to do things, of course, but again, it's like, what's the intention, what's the driving factor? And so to me, what I found to be a big opportunity is doing things just because they feel nice, like doing things just because, like, oh, I would really like to do that right now. It feels like something nice to do. It feels like it's good for me. It feels like it's taking care of me. That's what I found to be the big, have found. And this is like an ongoing journey, again, just like, learning how to be still, because, life is both, it's like the yin and the yang, like there is still stillness, and then there is times of action. But again, what's the energy behind the action? That's the important question that we're talking about here. But that's what, has really stood out for me, is like, even in these periods of the soul saying, slow down, you don't need to achieve anything, so to say. It's like, learn how to be relaxed in the being. It's like, you can still do things, but again, it's like, why are you doing them? Like, it's like, and what I found to be of like really great value for me is like, oh, because it feels nice. It just feels nice to go on a walk. It feels nice to connect with a friend. It feels nice to kind of remember how to cook again. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a much different, like, oh, it's like the factor behind it is like, it just feels nice. Like, that's kind of what I found. Does that hold any truth for you, or what do you feel about that?
And that's kind of where I'm exploring, because if we just go with it feels nice,
Yeah.
reaching out and inviting somebody to our programs or whatever, our offerings, and we're going to get rejected, that does not feel nice. And so if we get sort of this one answer for everything, like one blanket answer for that I only do what feels nice to me, then chances are you wouldn't start on a new workout routine because it doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel nice to wake up in the morning. It doesn't feel nice again to ask for, potentially getting rejected. And so I was also in myself figuring out, when should you listen to this? I only do stuff that feels nice, and when shouldn't. And one of the things that I heard was, if you look at the sort of end goal result, having a nice body, having a prosperous business, does that feel nice to the body? And typically, right, I want to have a healthy body. I want to have lots of energy. I want to have a growing business. That feels nice. But in order to get there, some of the steps, they will not feel nice. And that right now is somewhat helping me figure out, this little compass is like, okay, do I lean into the discomfort or do I go with what I want to do? Yet at the same time, right, it's like, it's funny how it's just, I'm seeing paradoxes where it all depends. Here I'm saying, okay, look at the end result. But at the same time, I love that you said that you, in a way, should do only things that feel good in the process. And similarly, if you only do things in order to achieve a result, one, the result is not going to get there as easily or as quickly. And two, if you're only doing stuff for the result, you're not really enjoying the process. So, and to me, like holding these two paradoxes and then knowing, having this, in a way, wisdom to which is which and when to apply which is something that I'm exploring with myself and others.
Gotcha. And yeah, no, I mean, well, thank you for adding that. I think it's really valuable that you added that. And I just want to be clear, like I wasn't saying that that's like that's just what, something I was finding in just my periods of stillness was like, like it doesn't have to be absolutely nothing. It's like, you can do things. It's just that like that's what I was finding, like, oh, and I think it was helpful for me to be reminded of that, like, it's okay to do things because they feel nice again, rather than the end result, because that's where I was coming from, was like, end result, like you said, I'm like in a hurry to get somewhere, type thing. And so it was really nice for me to come, oh yeah, I can do things just because they feel nice. And to tie in what you were, it was good for me to remember that that's okay. So I'll say. And then to tie in what you were just saying is, so of course, I'm still expanding. I feel that we're always expanding. That's just like the truth of, the nature of the universe is endless expansion. And so I do get invited into things that cause me, I hear you saying discomfort. I mean, does it feel uncomfortable? Yes, but to me it is that like raw expansion. It's like and for me it has a lot to do with being even more vulnerable, like maybe it's, just still allowing myself to be seen in more ways and just even being more myself, like that continues to feel very vulnerable. And just, putting myself out in new ways where it's like, that's what it is. It's like really putting my real self out there, and in different situations, like that does feel very vulnerable. And so, yeah, I could say that feels uncomfortable because, there's still those aspects coming up of like, yeah, like what if I'm not seen? What if I'm not appreciated? Those types of things. And so I do still get led intuitively. Like that's the deciding factor for me, is like I just have, if I'm being called to do something in action, I'll just have a knowing. Like to me, that's my heart and soul being like, hey, the step is clear. Are you going to take it? And I know like I'm being given like a choice from my heart and soul. And then it's about like, can I step into it? And like it can feel very vulnerable and uncomfortable because of that. And it's like on the other side, though, it's like I see why my heart and soul invited me into that step. So to me, that's, I guess, in my experience, how I am clear when I take action that maybe doesn't feel comfortable, as you were saying, is like I just have like this clear knowing from my heart and soul is like, this is the step. Like, are you going to take it? And then because I have that clarity, I'm like, okay. And I just go through it. But then on the other side, I'm just like, like often what I see on the other side is just like, oh, all my insecurities about that weren't even real. Like it's not what actually happened. My
Mhm.
insecurities, but and so then it's just like I feel more one confident in in my ability to honor my heart and soul, even when it feels, it triggers like insecurity and stuff. But also like on the other side, it's just like, oh, like a lot of my insecurities weren't even real. And so it just helps me get more in touch with like life as it truly is based on like the old perceptions of my mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Here's an exercise maybe we can do like in live setting. Um, and one aspect of it is a strong inner critic that says we should be doing stuff.
Hmm.
Then something in the middle that I call a want. It's not even a desire, kind of it's a want. And um, I no longer prefer to use want because want comes with a need. It comes with attachment. It's like I want them to like me. I want the car because I don't want the car. I want the status that it'll bring with it, or so I think. So in the middle is this want, and then on the other side completely is the preference,
Hmm.
where and we've talked about this as well, right? It's like I prefer a nice prosperous business and a nice prosperous apartment, house, car, and I'm okay without it. Like it's not gonna add anything to my life in terms of what it means about me, about my results and achievements, my impact on the world, etc. So, is it a should or is it a preference? Like that's the intention of it. Is
In
it
terms of the
the inner?
action.
Yeah, is it the inner critic that's saying you
Oh,
should
okay.
because it's gonna there's outcome assigned to it, there's things because you're being hard on yourself, or it's actually a preference for me to go through the discomfort of being seen and meeting people
Oh, gotcha.
and discover my fears.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. So it's like, to me, the way it's sounding is like you see the value in in this instance in putting yourself out there more, even though it may not feel comfortable. It's like you're seeing the value of like, you know, all in all, it's going to be good for me. All in all, I'm going to have new experiences. I might develop new relationships. Who knows what could come out of it? But all in all, I feel that it's good for me as I move up to the plate of action. It feels a bit
Mhm.
shaky, uncertain, but but I'm aware that like, there's probably going to be like good things that come out of this. So I'm just going to like go through the process, feel the feelings, and just, put myself out there because yeah, you see value in it. It feels like it just feels right to you is what I'm getting.
Right. And the same thing on the opposite spectrum, where if you've been acting too much, right, the mind says you should continue to be active,
Yeah.
but your whole body is screaming for, I need rest. I can't handle this anymore. And so this inner fight between, okay, you got to do more, or I actually got to relax.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, right? Is really being able to hear from within oneself, like what to me it's like what is the true voice, because again, to me, like I know this is said a lot in like different spiritual teachings, but like, the voice of the heart and soul or intuition, like it doesn't need to explain itself. It just says this is what it is, doesn't need to argue, doesn't need to explain itself. It can be very subtle. Sometimes it can like really get your attention if it needs to, but usually pretty like subtle, relaxed, like, hey, this is the guidance, like this is just what it is, and it's this simple. Whereas like to me, the voice of the conditioned mind tends to be that one that has a lot of pressure and, you know, like you need to, or has a lot of or else's, like you need
Hmm.
to, and if you don't, like there's an or else, you know. So there tends to be a lot of like pressure and again, you know, just coming from the lack of like, you know, you should be, you know, you're not enough, blah 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 blah. So to me, like that is the whole dance, right? It's like, you know, are you in the pressure voice? Are you in the like the lack not enough voice? Like, is that where you're looking to be guided from in terms of the action in your life? Or is it like the, you know, the simple one that to me feels like deep down, the simple one that's just like, hey, um, actually what's best is relax. Like that's what it
Yeah,
is. So like accept it or don't, but like your heart and soul saying like you can just lay back right now. That's the
exactly. And
dance to me. How do you feel?
it's not only that we deal with all of our own conditioning and our own inner critic. There's so much pressure from the outside.
Yeah.
And I had a very cool experience earlier this year. I have an addictive personality in terms of video games. And when I was younger, I was playing some video games. But then I was able to say, okay, playing video games is not productive, is useless. And so I stopped and haven't played since. And this time, sometime in the spring, Costco had the PlayStation 5. I've been looking to see kind of PlayStation 5 kind of, they were still not in stores, etc. But here, local Costco got a shipment of them and it was a nice discount. And I'm looking at my girlfriend and she's kind of, don't even think about it. She's like, my girlfriends like lose their husbands whenever the PlayStation comes in, or like whenever a computer comes in. Is like, I'm not losing my men to some stupid silly game. I'm like, okay, interesting. And then I keep going back, and this is one of those moments where my life was still very slow, and I was forcing myself to be slow. And I keep getting this sense, it's like I gotta go get it. Whereas my girlfriend, my inner critic, and everybody else is like, you know, old men, you know, old, like grown men, adults don't play games. It's like that's for kids and that's not for responsible people, etc. And I'm like, I don't know why I gotta go do that. And the logical reason I came up with is I gotta reconnect with my inner child in a way. So I'm like, okay, I gotta do that. And I bought it. And in the process, uh, popular game was back then. I needed to look it up. It was the Hogwarts Legacy, the Harry Potter game. Kind of wanted to see kind of what kind of environment they created for Harry Potter, etc. And so I started playing, and I looked at the game would take like 60 to 100 hours to finish, and I'm like, oh my god, 60 to 100 hours is like a week or two of, you know, how much I can actually do produce in that time. And I keep getting sort of these signals that yeah, this is what you're supposed to do right now. Go and play and go and play and it was a lot of people talk about the dark night of the soul. I don't think I've ever had an experience of a dark night of the soul, but over the last spring and summer, I've gotten through several stages of the dark night of the ego in a way, where my ego was just getting crushed and like dissolved. And so this was a really tough choice for me inside to go through this, allow myself to buy the game, allow myself to play it. And then at some point, once I played, I don't know, 70, 100 hours of it, I enjoyed it fully. I allowed myself to enjoy it fully. Like initially I was sitting, it's like, why am I doing this? And then I'm like, well, screw that. If I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to. And I surrendered into it. I enjoyed it fully. And then once I finished the game, kind of, I couldn't play it anymore. Um, I got into the GTA 5 thing and I played that before and I started playing it and I couldn't play it for an hour or two and I couldn't play it anymore. I'm like, okay, it's done. Now PlayStation is sitting collecting dust because I haven't played it 3-4 months now, but I needed to go through that. I, you know, the performer, like put the performer aside. You're playing now. It's not about productivity. It's about something else. And so, just wanted to share that experience of allowing wherever, life intuition guides you to experience life in a way that's not productive.
Well, the main thing I was sensing during that was that it was a way for you to allow yourself to have like joy, like it's like, I mean, there's so much about that. And, the world of metaphysics is like, like we're here, actually to experience joy, that's why like we have these beautiful oceans and mountains we can climb and rivers we can, like submerge in and things like that. It's like it's all of this stuff to be enjoyed. So it sounds like to me that was like an invitation for you to like step back into something that you really enjoyed, which was the fun. I mean, that's why kids do it, like, and I remember I played video games, like I played like the Sonic and the Marios and the Ninja Turtles and the X-Men. And it's like it was because it was fun, like it was just fun. Like that was the only motivating, it was just fun. And so like that's what I was getting. It's like, oh, it was like you were being invited to just like have fun. But also like what I heard you starting that story from was like really coming back to your own inner truth, even when there was like some of this pressure that you talked about from the outside, like other people kind of like having their judgments or assessments about it, like, you shouldn't be doing that, like that's a waste of your time, or like that's immature. It's like, like you had some outside voices, you know, adding some pressure, but you kept on feeling this inner pull. And so to me, based on your story, you went with the inner pull, but um yeah, that's what I felt like you were really speaking to, is that like, yeah, it's not always just the inner kind of like dance that's going on. There are sometimes, maybe a lot of times outside pressures. And do we do we cave to the outside pressures, which, a lot of times is called people pleasing, or do we just like really go, no, I know what my I know what my
Mhm.
inner guidance is, and it's there, it's consistent, so what am I going to do? So yeah, thank you for, because yeah, that does happen. There's
Definitely.
can certainly be outside pressures.
Right. And if we take it now a little deeper here, right? If we see that the external is just a mirror of the internal, then and that's how I'm choosing to see my girlfriend. The first thing that she says or does that kind of maybe is against what I would agree with, I consider her as my reflection of my inner feminine. So the fact that she was against me choosing to play, I saw it as my inner feminine is not letting me play.
Hmm.
My inner feminine is being harsh on me. And seeing that, seeing the world as reflection of what's coming inside of, and is really how you are beating yourself up in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
It gives the control back, sort of, that I have nothing to do with those people. I can't change them, but I can definitely
yeah,
inquire and listen to these internal parts. Why are they so harsh on me?
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, thank you for tying that in, just the outer world as a reflection. Because yeah, to me it's like, well, yeah, because in so many instances the outer world is currently reflecting again, the blocks or the limitations that we're still entertaining. And so it's like, the way I'm seeing it is, not only did you have like, that doubt or that block or that resistance from within, but you also had projected it outside yourself. And in
Mhm.
this case, you projected it in the energy of, your partner, your romantic partner. And so like it's like you were seeing it within and without. And it's like, but the opportunity was, okay, but I have this underlying pull that says like this is okay, and it would be fun. And so yeah, and that's the to me the opportunity where things really can shift, like when we see, the reflections is that way, is like, oh, this is it's not just something happening on the outside of me, and it's not like necessarily even them. This is just another way I'm showing myself like where I'm at, on the inside of me. And so what am I going to do? Like, am I going to am I going to shift, and am I going to follow my intuition, or am I just going to kind of keep going with um this way that I'm blocking myself? So I love that
Yeah.
you brought up the
Or
outer reflections.
or am I gonna stand up and fight the external projection of the internal and spend the energy of stuff that is not gonna really shift anything?
Well, that's what yeah. Yeah, you're talking about fighting the mirror reflection of our life. And so that's what I'll never forget this. This is what Bashar always says. It's like it's like like looking in an actual mirror, like a physical mirror, and trying to make the reflection smile. Like you're putting your hands in there, like smile, smile. It's like, no, it's just reflecting what you're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to smile, and then the reflection smiles.
Yeah, that actually reminds, right? It's like they're saying we're supposed to be going back to being a child again. And they did a study with children, and they asked, I forget how old the child was, maybe 2, 3, I don't know. And they asked the child, uh, go wash your face. And what the child went, turned on the tap, wet the hands, and then started washing the face in the mirror
Mm,
because they don't have yet that understanding of me.
okay.
It's like they see everything that's out there. So it's like that reminded me of that it's before, I guess, the concept of I gets developed. I don't know when.
Yeah, I'm guessing it must be like pretty young, like two or something.
Two-ish maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Um, I'm just thinking of a real life story that actually kind of ties into that. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally see that. Man, yeah, no, this is all very real stuff. So like, well, I just wanna so how do you currently take care of yourself? It's a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. Like if you find yourself in a bit of a being pulled in two different directions on the inside of you, or you're having some of that outside pressure, just the reflection actually legit showing you, which I know can feel very real when we're seeing it and experiencing it happening outside of ourselves. We're like, oh, this feels really real.
Mhm.
I mean, it is, but it's just, again, like an outward projection. So, but it just makes it feel all the more intense. It can, if you ask me. It's like, no, this is really this is really something I'm being invited to, like, to see, or to see differently. So how do you have like go-tos to take care of
Yeah,
yourself, like when this stuff comes up for real in your life?
for sure, for sure. Couple of things coming to mind. So one, um, sort of a concept of if nothing mattered, what then? Like if none of it mattered, if you didn't need to wash your dishes, if you didn't need to feed yourself, you didn't need to pay, take care of the family, none of it mattered. What would you do? Right. And a lot of people uh, just entering this journey would have the fear of I would be a lazy piece of couch potato and I wouldn't do anything. Right. And in a way, this fear that we've been conditioned that if you don't do anything, then you can be nothing. It's a huge fear and
Or it's gonna like end up the worst.
end up the worst. Right. And to me, there's like even my logo is a little dip where on the other side, where most of the people who have gone through in a way this dip, they're saying, right, similar how you are right now, I'm following my joy and I'm following what feels good for me. But if there's any fear in the way, if there's that lack of self-worth, and what if they're going to reject me? What if something's going to happen? If there's any fear in the way, then to me, you go into the fear.
Hmm.
So yes, follow the joy. And also, if there's any chance of fear of anything in the way, you go and look at it. And not from the sense of the discomfort of the high performance, I'm going to, force through this.
Or crush it.
But exactly right. But you go into it to dissolve it, not
Hmm.
to beat it into submission, but to look at it and see the illusion of it.
Yeah.
How you mentioned, right? It's like when you go into the discomfort of like going to a party, then it's like, oh, my all my fears, they were not there. So I think this is my current pretty simple thing is like, okay, well, does it feel good? And if there's any fear around it, then I'm going to go into the fear first.
Hmm.
So an example is I've got a couple of things coming up next month, and I am afraid and worried that not enough people are going to be interested in those things. I am excited about doing them, but I am worried and anxious and etc. So rather than doing the exciting part, I'm leaning into the discomfort, into the fear to say, if nobody shows up and if nobody wants my thing, that is going to be my win. I'm going to feel through my body all of the insecurities that I have, that I'm not valued, I'm not interested, I'm not, nobody cares about me. To me, that will be a huge and a much bigger win than me getting celebrated by others and getting the attention and everything else.
Hmm. So what I'm getting from that is, you're excited about doing it no matter what, but at the same time there are like these doubts, these insecurities, what if it's not the way that I would hope it to be? What if it's not? And even if it were not to be the way that you would hope it would be, even if it's kind of like the opposite of what you would hope it would be, it's like you would see that as an opportunity just to address like any emotions that might trigger, like whether it's like, what did I do wrong? Like nobody likes me. Like you would see any emotions that like it not taking off or people not coming, you would see any emotions that arise from that as an opportunity just to go that much more deeply into yourself, find more acceptance for yourself. And so it's like, to me, it's like no matter what happens, you still see great opportunity in it, is what I'm getting.
Mm-hmm. And with the intention not to cover up myself through the achievement and through status and success, but to actually get more naked in a way,
Hmm.
remove the layers that I think will protect my sense of worth
Mhm.
through whichever. And yeah,
What are some of those layers? Just curious.
for me, it's a huge of fear of rejection, and kind of a big theme for me was not feeling heard, not feeling understood, being a misfit.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, it was for a long time I was in a sense of apathy, and I needed to have a bunch of coaching conversations just to get to the level that it was the apathy and discouragement that was in the way that um, what's the point of me trying to show up when people don't understand or hear me,
Hmm.
because I'm this weirdo who's going through his life journey
Hmm.
and I have no say about what they want or don't want. And that means there's actually no point of me showing up if nobody wants to hear any of this. And how I healed that, just discovering, okay, where am I giving the power away to other people?
Hmm.
And it's like, where are other people playing the role here? And so it's like, why am I expecting other people to be heard? And for me, the biggest thing was, well, if they're not hearing me and I need my bills paid in a way with their money, so if they're not hearing me, that means I won't be able to pay my bills, I won't survive.
Hmm.
So all of these intermingled beliefs and conditioning that made me a chameleon to become really brilliant at sensing what I think people want from me,
Hmm.
and showing up in a way that I think they want me to
Yeah,
show up
gotcha.
in a very messed up, convoluted way. And of course, uh, even you commenting on some of the stuff that I was putting out there, appearing very masked, not authentic, not really showing who I am because of this deep fear and desire to be heard, and etc. So yeah, now it's just all dissolving that. And how that came about was a beautiful couple of sort of shifting the imagery from which we see ourselves in the world. And kind of I was able to shift that when people turn away from me, it doesn't mean that, I'm not going to be supported, I'm not going to have money or income. So I needed to shift that my income comes from others.
Mm.
And kind of was a beautiful journey to see as like, no, I'm supported through other means than validation and needing to be heard by others. And
Yeah.
that allowed me to be more honest, both with myself and others. And also like any shame that I feel, I'm like on a journey right now to, if anything that I don't like about myself, in a weird way, I'm kind of, okay, I'm putting that on Instagram. Why? Because, well, kind of, they say the best way to get rid of shame is to share it.
Mm.
And I don't have like, I've worked through some of the big things, but I don't have the huge traumas. So really my remaining shames are like, today I posted my kitchen sink was full. Like to me, that was, when it's a shameful part in a way. And I posted that. And the funny thing is that this is what is connecting with people the most.
Mm. Wow.
It's like allowing others to see their stuff too.
Wow. Mm. Yeah, just receiving that for a second. A couple of things stood out to me. One, just, I mean, this is very familiar language on this podcast, this platform, but I kind of it felt to me that what you were pointing to, which has been very real for me, is just recognizing that like source or the all, some people call it God, like source is the source of my good. It's like it doesn't just come from one means. It doesn't just come from one way. It's like, and the infiniteness of creation, like, provision can come from any direction at any time. It's like the mind's been trained to think can only come this way or that way or blah blah blah, but in truth of reality, like, we can be supported in all kinds of ways. And so just relaxing back into that, I felt like I heard you speaking to that, which again has been very like powerful for me too. Just remembering like, like my mind is only aware of like a couple ways that things could ever work out, whereas in the truth of reality, there's like a billion times a billion things could happen. And I've seen that so many times. I've seen how like my mind doesn't have a clue how any one given thing is going to happen or take care of itself, but like when I listen to my soul, and many times my soul will just be like hands off, like, it's all good. And when I really just relax into that, like, okay, it's all good, I just watch how in my outer reality, it's like, yep. And like the right moment, it comes in, it's all good. And I'm just like, oh, I just relaxed and listened to my soul. And it's just like things just, again, life has a million times a billion ways. And just like, oh, wow, it totally just worked itself out. So I've seen that and continue to see it. And that's honestly a big part of my expansion, is just watching how life is designed to take care of itself. And a big part of that is me listening to my intuition. Like that's how I'm able to be a part of the flow, is when I just really listen. Sometimes it is just like do this very specific action. Other times it's like hands off. And either way, when I listen, I'm like, whoa, it's just so much easier than my mind ever saw it being. So thank you for pointing to that. And then I just really, I like that you spoke to the vulnerability, that what you're finding is that the more you just show yourself like as you are, it's like that's what's getting, you're seeing a lot of resonance, like as you show up with you just like really being real about you, which is beautiful. And I just also want to thank you. I feel like you've been extremely vulnerable in a very admirable way in this interview. So I just want to thank you for opening up the doors, let us see inside.
Yeah, that's the being a good student part of me. Thank you for your feedback to kind of allow these doors to open up. And yeah, I love kind of how our journeys have been such parallel over the last few years. And I'm excited to see where else it's going to take us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like I could probably, keep talking about this for a while, but I yeah, I know just due to the timing of today, it's just kind of just time to wind down. So thank you again for having this conversation. It's just felt very real to me and um, very heart-centered. So it's been a joy, and just want to give you the opportunity if well, first, just if there's any like just closing sentiment you want to leave with people who have tuned in this conversation, just like give me a sentence or two, just kind of like a finishing touch you might want to leave on this conversation, feel free. And then after that, just if people want to connect with you beyond this interview, please feel free to share with us how we can best discover you online. It'll be in any links will be in the show notes, of course, but feel free to speak it out as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. I think as final couple of points that come up is one is to show up vulnerably means to accept the dark parts of ourselves first. And I know you're a big proponent of self-love, and that's the hardest part, because when we learn to accept and love all of our parts without needing to change just as they are today, that's when life becomes beautiful. And the other part, true freedom comes when we let go of all of the conditioning and all of the shoulds that we've been grown into, including our own inner critic stuff, that life is possible when there's no shoulds. It's like you wake up in the morning, it's like, what do I feel like doing right now? And each moment, what do I feel like doing? What do I feel like doing? Mm. Yes, the journey through that is through discomfort, but life does get awesome and amazing and free and beautiful after that. And this is, kind of the hour flew by. I love the conversation. I love the energy. Thank you for the opportunity again. And this is kind of the stuff that I want to help people get to as well. And my biggest thing, my property online I'm developing is at flowhabit.com. Kind of this is the brand that I'm going with, is developing the habit to really just flow with life and get into, in a way, peaceful performance of things. So like from flowhabit.com, you'll be able to find my Instagram account. And I have an app coming up helping with all of this stuff. And also there's webinars and challenges and things. So if anybody's interested, I would love to get to know them too.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting us know. And again, any relevant links will be in the show notes as this episode goes out to the world. So thank you for that. It's been a pleasure and a joy. And thank you to everyone who has watched or listened. If you found value in this conversation, please feel free to share it. Leave a comment if the platform allows you to do so. Give it a rating if the platform allows you to do so, like a heartfelt rating. There's a lot of different ways that you can support and share this conversation, which to me, I feel like they're just getting more and more real, like the best way. So if you found value, please feel free to share. Thanks again for watching or listening. And for now, this has been another episode of the Restore Yourself podcast. Best wishes and namaste.